If you've watched Extraordinary Attorney Woo, The Good Doctor, or Sherlock, you've seen that moment. That flash of brilliance where the hero sees a pattern, a detail, a connection that every other normal person completely missed. Attorney Woo has her whale moment. Dr. Sean Murphy has his surgical vision. Sherlock has his mind palace. And here's what Hollywood got right. This isn't fantasy. This is a real cognitive framework. For decades, we've been handed a script that says autism is a list of deficits. A collection of things that are broken. But that's only half the story. And it's the boring half. Today, we're flipping the script. We're not talking about a disorder. We're deconstructing the autistic framework as what it actually is. A different operating system. A high-performance processor running software the neurotypical world wasn't designed to recognize. We're revealing the 6 hidden superpowers. And if you stick around, you'll understand why Silicon Valley is actively recruiting for these exact cognitive advantages. This is the simple scribe. Let's decode the autism advantage. Superpower 1. The detail, aka pattern recognition. Let's start with the most obvious one. The Attorney Woo power. This is what scientists call superior pattern recognition. But let's call it what it really is. The ability to see the matrix. The neurotypical brain is designed as a filter. It's constantly cutting corners, making assumptions, and ignoring 90% of sensory data. It has to. Otherwise, you'd be paralyzed by information overload. But the autistic brain? Different architecture, more connections, less filtering. While everyone else sees the summary version of reality, the autistic mind processes the full, high-definition file. In practical terms, this is the code breaker who spots the bug 10 other programmers missed, the data scientist who sees trends in spreadsheets that look like random noise, the musician who can hear every instrument in a 100-piece orchestra and tell you which violin is slightly out of tune. It's not magic. It's processing information differently, and in fields like cybersecurity, financial analysis, or quality control, this isn't a disability. This is the competitive advantage. Superpower 2. The focus, aka hyperfocus. The clinical term is restricted interests, which sounds like a limitation. But let's reframe it. What the DSM-5 calls restricted, the rest of the world calls elite focus. This is hyperfocus. The ability to lock onto a subject and stay there for hours, days, years. Until you've achieved mastery, most people will never reach. While the average person gets distracted every 11 minutes, the hyper-focused mind enters flow state on command. This is how you get 15-year-olds fluent in 6 programming languages. The kid who memorized every Pokemon and can now apply that systematic learning to organic chemistry. The neurotypical brain says, "That's enough, I'm bored." The autistic brain says, "No, there's still more to understand." And that difference? That's the difference between being good at something and being top 1% in the world at it. Superpower 3. The logic, aka systematic thinking. The third superpower, systematic thinking. The neurotypical brain is optimized for social navigation. It's constantly reading subtext, making social calculations, adjusting behavior based on invisible hierarchies, useful. But it introduces bias. It makes you care more about who said something than whether it's true. The autistic brain often bypasses this. Not because it can't understand social rules, many autistic people learn them like a second language, but because it doesn't prioritize them over logic. This is the engineer who builds systems from the ground up based on what works, not what's always been done. The philosopher who questions assumptions everyone else accepts without thinking. The investor who makes decisions based solely on data, not hype or social pressure. In a complex world where old social rules are breaking down and logic is becoming the universal language, this is a massive advantage. Quick pause. What does on the spectrum actually mean? Autism Spectrum Disorder has 2 main criteria. First, differences in social communication. Difficulty reading social cues, challenges with conversation, or more direct communication. Second, restricted and repetitive behaviors. Intense interests, preference for routine, or sensory sensitivities. Keyword, spectrum. Autism isn't binary. It's a range. Every person's profile is unique. And if you're enjoying this breakdown and want more videos decoding the hidden frameworks of psychology and biology, hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel and tells YouTube you want more detailed content like this. Superpower 4. The archive, aka deep knowledge. The fourth superpower, the archive. Those restricted interests? Here's the other side. Encyclopedic depth of knowledge. This is the person who knows everything about trains, space, ancient Rome, or Studio Ghibli's complete filmography, including obscure early commercials. Before you dismiss that as just trivia, consider this. Every expert in every field started this way. They found what fascinated them and didn't stop learning. The difference? The autistic mind doesn't lose that childhood ability to obsess to build the mental archive. In a knowledge economy where specialization is rewarded, being the person who knows more about your niche than anyone else, that's not a quirk, that's a career. Superpower 5. The sincerity, aka radical honesty. Superpower 5. Radical honesty. Autistic communication is often called blunt or missing social cues. But let's reframe that. This is the superpower of truth-telling, the inability or refusal to engage in polite lies and social theater that neurotypical communication relies on. Ask an autistic person if your haircut looks good, and if it doesn't, they'll tell you not to be cruel. Just because, why would they lie? Yes, this creates friction. Most of us are socialized to soften truths, but in certain contexts, invaluable. In engineering, you don't want someone who'll say the bridge design is fine when it has a fatal flaw. In medicine, you don't want sugar-coated diagnoses. In creative work, you don't want collaborators who'll say your idea is great when it needs work. You want truth. That's the superpower of sincerity. Final superpower. Sensory acuity. Sensory sensitivity is usually framed as a challenge, being overwhelmed by loud restaurants, scratchy clothing, fluorescent lights. That's real. Sensory overload is legitimate. But here's the reframe. The senses aren't broken. They're amplified. Set to higher resolution. This is the artist who sees 1,000 shades of blue where you see one. The chef with a super palate who identifies every ingredient by taste alone. The musician who hears acoustic properties and knows exactly where sound reflects. The designer who creates products with unparalleled tactile quality. The amplifier can be overwhelming. But in the right environment, it's not a bug, it's a feature. And if this is giving you a new perspective, making you rethink how we label disability versus difference, hit that like button. It helps me know this content resonates. So, what's the source? Why do these 6 superpowers exist? The leading theory is the intense world theory. It suggests the autistic brain isn't less of anything, it's more. More neural connections, more sensitivity, more processing power. The result? A high-definition, deeply connected, intensely experienced version of reality, not a broken neurotypical brain. A different operating system entirely. Here's your toolkit. If you're neurodivergent, this isn't about romanticizing autism or ignoring challenges. It's about reframing your cognitive style as strengths, not deficits. Identify your superpowers. Seek environments where they're valued. If you're neurotypical, stop seeing autism as something needing to be fixed. See it as cognitive diversity our world desperately needs. Hire for these strengths. Accommodate these differences. Build systems where different brains thrive. The world doesn't need more people who think the same way. It needs the pattern. Recognizers. The truth tellers. The deep specialists. The logical architects. The hyper-focused creators. It needs people who see what everyone else misses. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to The Simple Scribe. We're building the ultimate library of human knowledge, decoded, deconstructed, and made simple. Thanks for watching. Now go use your superpowers.